Okay, hi everyone. We'll be having a short session on FMS interviews today, and we'll be going through each of our interview experiences one by one, and then you can ask us whatever questions you'd like. So first, we'll go ahead with Prakrit.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Prakrit Chauhan. I'm a first year student at FMS Delhi. So before I joined FMS, I completed my BTech in computer engineering from Nirma University in 2020. After that, I briefly worked as an applications engineer and then I was preparing for a UPSC Civil Services exam before I joined FMS. So now coming to my interview experience, the first question was that tell us 5 things which are not on the application form. So I think I named 4 things and it was a long answer. So I stopped at 4 things, and the response that I got was, "Didn't you listen properly? We asked you 5 questions. We asked you 5 things." So that was how my interview experience started. That was the first question, and then I gave the fifth thing as well. And immediately after that, the extemporary topic was the importance of being a good listener. And then I spoke about it for 1 minute. So what I want to say here is that my interview did not start on a great note, but I think that should not affect you. Eventually, the interview went well. So after that, I got a question regarding current affairs, that what is India's net zero target? What are the challenges in achieving India's net zero goal? What was my opinion about electric vehicles in India? So these were some of the current affairs related questions that I got. After that, the discussion went regarding my SOP. So I had mentioned that I now want to do an MBA after preparing for civil services. So there was one line which I had mentioned, that there are some qualities which are overlapping between a successful bureaucrat and a successful manager. So the question that I got was, what are some of these qualities that I've talked about in my SOP? So I listed them. After that, there was a question related to my background, which is in computer science. So I have also interned as a data science intern. So they asked me to give the difference between machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science, and deep learning. So I answered about that. Then they asked me to draw the differences in terms of a Venn diagram. So they gave me a notepad and I had to draw it. And after that, the last question was, what other calls did I have? So I answered that. So overall, the interview lasted for about 12 minutes. And one thing I'd like to add here is that people sometimes assume that the length of the interview, determines your conversion. So that is not the case. People with very short interviews as well as longer duration interviews manage to convert. So there is no correlation. The average interviews at FMS are about 8 to 10 minutes, but you should not worry about the length of the interview. So this was my overall interview experience. It was a little, like I said, it started on a tricky note, but then it went quite smoothly. The idea is to remain confident and calm throughout the interview, and do not let your extempore affect the rest of your interview. So let's say your extempore went too well or it went poorly. Do not become overconfident or underconfident. Just focus on the rest of the interview. So that was briefly my interview experience. Garima, would you like to go next?
Yeah, right. I can go next. Hello everyone. I am Garima, and before FMS, I'm an undergraduate. I'm an economics major from Delhi University. I've also dabbled a little bit in social media marketing with an agency. I was working with them for almost 1.5 years, and then I joined FMS, and it's been a great year so far. So as for my interview experience, it was quite similar to Prakrit's in the sense that it didn't start off on like the best note. So they right off the bat, they didn't ask me for my introduction or anything. They asked me to sell them a water bottle, basically create marketing pitches for a Bisleri water bottle, which was tailored to the interview panel. So obviously, that's not a question that you are going into an interview expecting. So, to be very honest, I wasn't able to give the best of the answer to that question. So, I was, a little bit disappointed that, oh, this is not going really well. But my major takeaway was that what they want to know at the end of the day is whether personality wise you'll be a good fit for the college or not. So most of my interview, actually majority of it was based on them getting to know me as much as possible. So after the marketing pitch question, they asked me a bunch of questions about my personality, in which I ended up mentioning that I have more of an introvertish personality. So they asked me what are the pros and cons of being an introvert? How do you think being an introvert will help you in the business world? So my extemporary topic was also then in relation to this topic itself. So they asked me to talk about my inner musings or my inner thoughts, because introverts are said to be more of introspective people. So majority of the interview went around that. I also had a few technical questions from my undergraduation background, which is economics. So a few technical questions around that. And they, in the end, they came back to the marketing pitch question. So after that whole, conversation, they again asked me to make a marketing pitch, and I was able to do quite well in that, is what I would like to say. So, like I said, it's more about them getting to know you. The nature of the interview was also more conversational than stress in any way. Also, your extemporary topic can come from, any part. It can come from your SOP. It can be technical, but it can also, is what I've observed from other people's experiences also, that it can also very well be related to the conversation that's going on. Like, I didn't expect my extemporary topic to be that way, but I was comfortable taking that up because it was in relation to the conversation. So just make sure to be confident, be involved, just be you. Don't try to, also, if you don't know the answer to any question, just don't try to fake it. Just don't try to make up an answer. If you don't know anything, just accept and say that I will make sure to learn about this going forward, and just be yourself, and just stay confident pretty much.
All right, I can go next. Thank you, Prakrit and Garma. So a bit about my background first. I'm an engineer. I did my engineering from Sardar Patel Institute of Technology in Mumbai. I graduated in 2021. Since then, I worked for about 2 years, first as a consultant at GEP, and then at a smaller startup as a product manager. So to talk about my interview, if you guys, since you guys are going through the process, you might know that FMS interviews happen towards the end. So essentially you've given all your other interviews, IIMs, the other non-IIMs as well. So you have a bit of an idea of what to expect, how to go about your preparation. You've gone through those stressful situations. So that was very similar in my case. Essentially the prep that I had done for other colleges really helped me with my FMS prep. I just essentially brushed upon the news for specifically for the FMS interviews. Rest of my answers were very much the same. So I went in with a fairly prepared mindset. Talking about it started with the general introduction. Mine followed the more conventional flow of tell me about yourself, what do you do, how's your work like, stuff like that. So it was fairly smooth initially. But I'd say that there was one point when they sort of tried to trick me into certain parts of my work, which got too technical. So I was a product manager, so there was only an X amount of tech that I was essentially involved in. So it started basically with them asking me about ML, AI, deep learning, VR, or AR, VR, all of these things, the differences, the similarities, the applications. That is something that I was able to talk about really well. But after a point, since I was working in a fintech company, they asked me about the technologies used in fintech. So that was a bit of that question came as a surprise to me because I was not sure what they're expecting. So I gave them answers of, how the back end works. But perhaps what they were expecting was me to again talk about blockchain and AI and something on a more generalized level. So I think there was an expectation mismatch there, which sort of got me into a situation where I started questioning how this interview was going. But then I was essentially able to handle it. After that, when it came to my extemporary, it was about just fintech in India. I spoke about UPI. I spoke about how the insane growth has been. I had a few numbers on my tips, so that definitely helped. And then, yeah, definitely it ended with them asking me about my other calls, and it was a fairly smooth interview towards the end as well. As you all know, FMS interviews results are out essentially on the last day of the interview. They don't make you wait as long as the other colleges on that front. So it can be very, very rewarding. But having said that, in this market, even if you don't get into an MBA college, it's a win. Obviously, in a place like FMS, you'll be doing great. But even if things don't go your way, you can always sort of go through the process again and get some exciting results again. So yeah, all the best to everybody.
Thanks, Aksha. I think I'll go next. So, I did my undergrad in engineering from NIT Jalandhar, and I'm a fresher. So, once I got my call for FMS, I was actually looking forward to it since this was the one interview that I thought could go really well since it's a short interview. So, if you nail those few things, then it goes well. However, my interview itself was a little bit different. So, my interview was the last interview before the lunch break, and I had to wait a little bit because of some setup they were doing, and due to that, I was already a little bit nervous. And once I went inside, I realized that this is going to be one of those stress interviews. They asked me that they asked me to talk about myself. After which, they asked me the extemporary topic, which was not as simple as some others had gotten. I got the advantages of being in the unorganized sector, which was a little bit tough for me to speak within 1 minute. However, I was able to get through with it. And the response that I got was that, is that is that your best shot? And I said, can I go again? And they said no. So that put me under pressure right at the beginning of the interview. However, that went on. They asked me a few current affairs questions. At that point, the Sri Lankan crisis was a bit flared up, as well as the France protests. So they asked me those two things. I was able to answer those. Then there were a few questions about my SOP, which I answered, but they didn't seem very impressed. And at that point, I was thinking that this is not going well. And again, as I mentioned, that since the beginning, everything put me under pressure. But then again, I just try to keep my cool and answer whatever that was thrown at me. However, the things that started going my way was that they started asking me a few technical questions about my degree, which I was fairly confident about. Since I'm a fresher, I was also fresh with all these concepts that I had just learned. So I was able to get through with it. And once those answers started flowing, I think I got my confidence back. Then towards the end, they also asked me about what my expectations from FMS are and what I aspire to be after doing my MBA. Those things I had prepared fairly well for. And yeah, I think towards the end, the interview got a little bit better. However, once I walked out of the room, I was not certain whether I was going to convert. But I think, as Prakrit had already mentioned, that one of the things to keep in mind is that do not think or do not start worrying about how your interview is going within the interview, and also about how long, short your interview was. I think my interview at max was about 6 to 7 minutes, if not lesser. And after that, I was certain that I wasn't going to make it, but things worked out and I was fine. So, from my experience, I can just say that there would be cases in which you could be put under a stress interview. Some of my friends had gotten extemporary topics like the color red or speaking about a tie in the formal setup, which are not so hard to talk about for a minute, but some topics can be a bit technical depending on what the interview feels like. And these things can get to you, but if you are able to maintain your cool, I think, as Garima had also mentioned, that just checking the cultural fit of you within FMS. So, yeah, I think having that confidence is what worked for me, and I hope it works for everyone as well.
Okay, so hi guys, my name is Aariman, and I completed my undergraduate education from NMIMS in Mumbai in 2023 itself, where I was pursuing a BBA in finance. So my interview experience, so as Prakrit mentioned that his was probably 12 or 13 minutes long, mine was on the lower end of that spectrum. So my interview was probably about 6 or 7 minutes long. So I remember entering the room and they asked me a little bit about myself, where I was from, where I was studying. And then they asked me about my college. So they asked me where it's located. So I said that it's located in Juhu in Mumbai. And he said, so is that close to Juhu Beach? So I said, yeah. So then after that, my extemporary topic was actually Juhu Beach. So this may sound very random, but I actually was made to speak about Juhu Beach for a full minute. So my advice on that front would be that whatever you're talking about, whatever the extemporary topic is, don't take it on the surface, in the sense that, for example, if my topic was Juhu Beach, then the advice is not to just start talking about Juhu Beach in terms of where it's located or what the sand looks like, for example. Instead of that, try to figure out something deeper. I know it's a little bit difficult to do it in a minute, but typically you should try to look at something which is beneath the surface and something which may not be very apparent. So in my case, I remember talking about how Juhu Beach is a great equalizer in Mumbai, in the sense that people from all economic strata come there, and that even though the city is rife with inequality, you see like a bunch of people from different economic stratas together over there. So that's how I approached that question, and that lasted for about a minute. Then after that, there were some basic technical questions that they asked me. I remember with regards to statistics and with regards to a little bit of finance. So one of the questions I think was a basic question about what are the measures of central tendency. So yeah, my experience was that the interviews do not go into as much depth as you would expect them to, and as much as you'd see in other colleges. They are more on the surface, and the intention is actually to evaluate the cultural fit, as others have also spoken about. So just be on your toes with regards to that, and I think yeah, that's about it. So, so if any of you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them now. And you can ask us anything about like our interview experiences or some tips or about life at FMS, whatever you would like to ask. So yeah.
I think meanwhile, I'd like to share a tip. See, you are absolutely sure that there will be an extemporary. So I think it's important that you prepare for it well in advance. So there is no way you'll be able to, prepare for the topics, because it could be completely random. It could be an abstract topic or a non-abstract topic. So the idea behind practicing is that you know what a one minute speaking for 1 minute feels like. So if somebody speaks a little slowly, for them they might not be able to cover a lot of topics in that 1 minute. So if you practice it beforehand, you'll be able to get an idea about at what speed you need to speak to cover maximum number of points. So what I used to do is I would ask my friends or my just ask anybody to give you a random topic. Ask your friends to just give you a random topic, put a 1 minute timer, and then just talk. So this will prepare you to face any random topics that you might get during your interview. So do this for both abstract topics as well as non-abstract topics. I mean, if you get a non-abstract topic, your life will be much easier. Like you can use the typical frameworks like a pestle, or you can always start with a definition or an origin. You can start much easier if it's a non-abstract topic. So practice this as much as you can, and this will definitely help you during your actual extempore.
So in like in relation to that itself, there's always a chance that despite, practicing as much as you can be handed a technical topic or a non-abstract topic, which you absolutely know nothing about. So maybe, it's something in the news that might have happened that, you might have missed. So let's say you're completely blank about the topic. It's always completely fine to request them to change the topic rather than make something up. Obviously try to speak if you can, if you know something in relation to the topic. Keep that as the last resort, but in case you're not able to think of anything and you genuinely don't know anything about the topic, rather than making something which doesn't make sense at all, you can always request the panel to change the topic. They'll be in most cases fine with that. And if you end up doing that and you end up with a topic which you are comfortable with, that will make up for the fact that you ask them to change the topic. So that is also completely fine if that happens. But of course, like Prakrit said, practice as much as you can beforehand, so that you don't end up in a situation like that.
Okay, so I think Ishan has a question. He has said, I'm a very shy person. How can I show my personality अच्छे से in an interview?
I mean, you just, I mean, even if you are shy, or you can just simply, it's a short interview, so just be confident, keep smiling throughout the interview. Don't let stressful questions affect you. And basically, it's okay if you are shy. That's not an issue. Just be confident and come throughout the interview.
I think what some of my friends did here was that they practiced a lot. That would definitely help you sort of sail through in the future. So you can do as many mocks as possible. But yeah, just make sure that you try to have some sort of greetings with them initially. Maybe you can start it too. So this is what I used to do for some of my interviews earlier on, especially when I was working. I used to ask before they asked me any question. I used to be like, oh, tell me, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Stuff like that, so that they get a little calm down, and they start on a nicer note per se. And once somebody speaks to you a little informally, you would be able to sort of glide your conversation from there. So that has definitely helped me in the past. Not used it in an MBA setup, but that's something that you can try if being shy is something you really struggle with in interviews. I think Ishan has asked another question regarding his UG score. So while getting into FMS, guys, please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they really pay a lot of there's no credit given to your academic scores or background. But again, then if that is the case, they might ask you, because they have your transcripts, they can ask you why there is such a trend. If you've consistently not scored well, why is that? If your scores have gone down, why is that? So maybe you can have a story around it, but it shouldn't really affect you getting into the college as such. Purely
So I can take this up as well, given that I didn't really have a great profile going into FMS, and I'm also a fresher. So my experience, at least, was that as Raksha mentioned, it's not really a criteria in selection. Only your 10th and 12th scores are a criteria in selection. I think it's about 75 plus is what you need in order to get full marks. If I'm wrong, someone can correct me. And apart from that, I think, as I mentioned previously, they don't really go into that much depth. So on that front, you're okay. But of course, I mean, it's always good to know what you studied and at least have a fair idea. I mean, of course, nobody expects you to be a master in something you studied some time ago, especially if you have some work ex. But of course, it's important to have a fair idea of what you actually studied.
So, professors sometimes they share their interview, how did they evaluate candidates. So one of the things that our professors told us that it's okay that you are not completely well versed with your undergrad subjects, but you should have a fair understanding. That is very important, because if you are not able to answer basic questions, then that's a red flag. For instance, I was asked a very basic question about a difference between machine learning, artificial intelligence, and deep learning. So that is something that is expected from someone who has done computer science and has worked as a data science intern. So similarly, let's say you have done economics. So you might get a question like, what is your opinion whether India should, take an expansionary monetary policy or an expansionary fiscal policy? What is your opinion about that? So you should be able to answer such questions. It's, of course, you cannot know all the technical details from your undergrad, but you should not go completely blank, because that then gives a very negative impression.
Right. So I think over here we have a question from Sonam asking about how we can improve communication skills on a personal level. So just some tips from my end would be that a lot of people use a lot of filler words, and I know that it's out of habit and it's not really a choice. But in most cases, those filler words, that how I practice was that I replace those with just pauses, and that makes you sound a lot more fluent than saying again and again, and that makes you sound a little bit low in confidence. So if you just maybe take a small pause and then continue speaking, you still sound a lot more coherent and a lot more fluent than maybe someone else who's using a lot of filler words. So that's one thing. Another thing about communication skills at a personal level, I understand that it's probably not the best idea to talk in English to, say, your family or friends, because it gets a little awkward and you might not be in that right zone. So what a lot of my friends had done is that they had joined these peer groups on Telegram and on other social media platforms where there were other candidates who were also preparing for this. So you can help yourself and the other person as well by maybe not giving feedback or anything, because I understand it's a competition at the end of the day, but just having someone to listen to you and someone formal listen to you who you're maybe not very aware of, and that helps you try and to get in that zone. So that's one thing. Another thing that I can say, as Prakrit had mentioned, to time yourself. I think communication, a lot of people just keep talking on and on in their TMA wise when they're asked in their first question. And that sets a bad example, because if the interview itself is, just 10 minutes and you talk for about 2.5 minutes, then that immediately sets you out of a lot of other people. So I would say that try and work on these things. If at a personal level you feel you're not very sure of your vocabulary and content, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to worry about what words you're using and how fancy you sound while talking. I'm sure that what they're looking for is how confident and how well versed you are with who you are. So it's not really about how many words you know or how well aware you are of the English language. So don't worry about that as much. Just make sure that you in these last 1 month or 30 days or so are able to just demonstrate what you know the best, and don't worry about acquiring too many new skills in this last few days.
I think another question that we missed out on was how can one prepare for extemporary? So if anyone has any tips with regards to that.
I think Prakrit answered that question, but we can take it up again.
I mean, for non-abstract topics, try to follow a structure, have an introduction, body, and conclusion. If it's a abstract topic, then it gets a little difficult. But like Aariman said, that try to go beneath the surface. So if it, like he said, that if it's a Juhu beach, you just don't speak about the obvious things. Try to look at more dimensions. Try to include more perspectives in your extempore. And end of the day, it's about practice. I mean, you will not be able to guess the topic, but the more you practice, you'll start thinking more quickly on your feet, and you'll get more dimensions and more perspectives to talk about.
Definitely. Another thing I'd like to add here is that it's always nice to add some, witty one-liners or quotes. So perhaps just you can do 5, 10 quotes and try to force fit it somewhere or the other. I mean, try to make it sound like it goes in a flow, but that would always help add an edge to your extempore. So that could help. I think there's another question that we had regarding what's important, SOP, academics, current affairs. So if you heard all of our interview experiences, I think everybody was tested on a different skill. Sarthak spoke about the SOP, some questions regarding the ACADS were asked to Prakrit. I think I was asked a question or two about current affairs as well. So it really needs to be an all-rounded effort and an all-rounded preparation. And yeah, I think these are, apart from these 5 to 6 things, there's not much to expect, honestly. So yeah, I'd say focus on all of them. Be very, very thorough with your SOP, because it is a big red flag that you've written something and they ask you about it and you don't really remember. Now, what happens typically in an FMS interview is that you fill your SOP in January, and then the interview is happening in April, and then you've given a lot of interviews in the 3 months that have passed. So make sure that you sort of revise your SOP, go through it again. Your perspectives must have changed in the last 3, 4 months because you're reading so much news, but make sure to, stick to what you'd written so that there is some consistency. And yeah, just make sure that there is no contradictions that you create, because that might be seen as a bit of threat.
Also, like in terms of your SOP, it's not a very big SOP. I think there is a 1,000 character limit for FMS SOP. So you should, evaluate yourself what you have written. So try to, for every sentence that you've written, try to think of 2 or 3 questions that an interviewer might ask after reading that statement or that sentence. Do that evaluation yourself. Again, ask your friend or people you are preparing with. So think of potential questions that you might be asked and prepare for that, because like Raksha said, that if you are unable to answer a question that directly relates with what you have written, that is again sends a very bad impression. So do this exercise, maybe form 20-30 potential questions related to your SOP, and prepare them well in advance.
Okay, so the next question is, I'm a fresher. How should I prepare if I've done BBA? So I can take this up since I did BBA myself. And I think what I can say is that the good thing about a BBA degree is that it covers everything. So we cover a little bit of economics, statistics, finance, marketing. So at least in that regard, your knowledge is pretty well rounded. So my advice would be to, of course, just have a baseline level of knowledge in everything, and then whatever you intend to specialize in. So in my case it was finance. So then of course I went ahead and I learned more about all the finance subjects that I had done in college. So yeah, like I said, know a little bit about everything, and whatever your interest is, go in detail in that regard. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
I think additionally, there are 2 important questions that you must prepare like you do for all other colleges: why MBA and why FMS. So my suggestion here is that when you are talking about why FMS, do not mention the obvious, which is ROI and placements. I mean, everybody knows that that is the best in the country. So talk about other things beyond placements and ROI when you are answering why do you want to join FMS. So professors really look forward to understanding that what is your motivation of joining FMS. So do some research, talk to seniors, alums, and try to understand that what is that which makes FMS unique, and add that to your answer, because they are going to interview thousands of 1,000 candidates every year. So you will not be able to come up with a completely unique answer. But if you try to align it with your personality, with your life, then you might have some differentiating answer which might really help in your interview. So I would definitely recommend that prepare a good why do you want to join FMS answer in advance.
Another thing that they mostly ask is if you have any questions for them. Again, a hygiene check question. Never say that no, I don't have any questions. Make something up. I'm sure a lot of times you have a very nice conversation with the interviewer, so you can sort of ask if there's something related to that you want to talk about. Don't ask how do you think my interview went. That's not something that would be acceptable. But yeah, have questions. Show your enthusiasm about the college. Even your two major ways to do that, or three major ways to do that, is one via your introduction, your why FMS, and if you have any questions for us. So I think these are certain touch points where you can actually tell them that you want to be here and you've heard great things. So use these opportunities as well, and I'm sure they will create an impact.
So something that can also help in relation to that itself, your YFMS question, and also if you have a question with us, is like Prakrit said, do thorough research on the college itself. So you can always ask them a question about, a particular course that is being offered in college. If you happen to recognize any of the professors, then maybe you can end up asking them about their course itself. That will leave, of course, a very good impression. So that will help you prepare your YFMS answer as well. If you research on the faculty, on our famous professors, and even our syllabus is available on the website. It's accessible to everyone. So you can, just look up the courses a little bit. You can ask them a question about that as well. Also, some of my friends did end up having FMS, the Red Building of Dreams, as their extemporary topics as well. So make sure to prepare an answer that that can ensure that you end up speaking for 1 minute about the college. And it's not just, things like it's your dream college. It has to be like substantial and it has to show your research. So yeah.
Right. I think let's move ahead. There's a few questions here. So starting with steering my interview in my direction and how to do it, I think that's been covered a little bit. But just to speed through it, as someone has already mentioned, if you talk about how you have done in your past and things that are standing out, which are probably not very basic, these things will obviously pique the attention of the interviewer and they'll end up asking you something regarding that. For example, for Aariman, he was asked about the Juhi breach, and Prakrit was asked about the five things and the importance of listening. So these things happen. You will probably be asked something from your TMAY itself. So to steer your interview in your direction, you probably just have to mention something that makes you, right? Something that makes you different and not just one of the 1,000 people that have been called for the interview. So just make sure that you be as authentic as possible, not an answer that you can find online or on ChatGPT, because everyone has their own version of an answer. So I would say that to steer the interview in your direction, you just have to prepare and know something that could interest the interviewer about yourself. And once the interview starts heading your way, then it's just about 10 minutes or so, and just that conversation gets it done. So anyone wants to add something on that, or shall we move to the next question? Correct. So next question was about profile being 777. Again, profiles and CAT percentiles are, going to be subjective for everyone. And I believe that all of us have friends who have very different profiles and very different CAT scores as well. So we cannot definitively say how that will impact your personal chances of conversion. So I would say that these things are now done and dusted and probably not in your control. So let's not fret about them and try to give our best in the interview and see what happens. So that's the personal advice I'd like to give. There's a few questions piled up here, so I'm gonna quickly go to the next one now. Next is about how life is at FMS. So I guess anyone wants to take this up, we can go ahead.
Okay, so I can take this up. So life at FMS is great in the sense that, of course, you get the flexibility of doing your own MBA course, and on top of that, being in Delhi, the national capital, essentially. So this opens up a lot of opportunities, not just in terms of course, being in college and the opportunities that are related to that, but also in the opportunities that are available in the city around you. So whether that is with regards to internships or any other life projects that you want to do. So that's there. And of course, apart from that, we also have a lot of cultural events, social events where all of us routinely participate. And I think that's overview. And if anyone else would also like to talk a little bit about life at FMS.
Yeah, I can go ahead with that. So the good part about the FMS curriculum is that it again gives you a lot of time to sort of pursue your other interests, do more to improve your profile. Some of you here spoke that maybe you don't have the best of profiles. Even if you, let's say you still get in, you have to sort of step up and make that extra mark. And FMS definitely, the curriculum definitely gives you the time to go through that. You will have all the guidance in the world from the IIMs, from your seniors who've been through this journey. And yeah, I think you get that opportunity a lot more than the other IIMs as I have seen. We have a great culture of copcoms. We have our fests. We go to different colleges to play sports because it's again in the heart of the city. There's so much to do in the North Campus area. There's so much life around because all of these are campuses of some of the most famous colleges of the country are within a kilometers radius. So it's always bustling. There's always so much to learn. You have access to hundreds of digital libraries. So if you want to make the best of it, you definitely can. But the good thing about FMS is that you won't be pushed at all. It is about what you do after a point. And really, I think I've seen some of my seniors and alums make the best of this time via their live projects, copcoms. They've reached to great levels because of the time they've spent here. So there is really no limit to what you can do.
Right. I think the next question is about campus. Yes, our campus is really. I would say that it helps in having this bond with all of our batchmates as well. We do not have a residential campus. However, all around the institute itself, there are a lot of flats and PGs that are exclusively for students. So there will not be a problem finding accommodation. And I think all of us have had a really great time. The culture of FMS is that you probably feel that you probably lack a hostel, but at the same time, these flats and the open access that we have to just the North Campus area makes life really great. I would say that the North Campus itself is our campus, and yeah, I think that's about it. Anyone else has something to say? Right, moving on. We have a question about certifications like CFA, Scrum, helping in the interview process. So, as already mentioned by someone earlier, it can help you just talk about yourself and probably showcase what you have done in your past. Will the certification itself help you get a better score? Probably not. But talking about it can leave an impression, and they can perhaps ask you a few questions about it. So even if you have certifications and you mention them in your TMAY, make sure that you are aware of them, because if they end up asking you something regarding that certification and you're not able to answer, then it will backfire. So make sure that whatever you mention, you are well aware of. But having certification itself, I would say that it does not impact your CS score. Right. Moving on. We have a question about gap years. There's a couple of them actually. Someone saying that how do we justify a gap year? So would anyone like to take it up?
Yes, so I had 2.5 years of gap on my CV. So for example, if it's related to UPSC, I think the interviewers do understand that people do take of time to pursue UPSC. So just be honest about it. I mean, you can talk about till which stage you reached, and even if you did not clear any rounds, that's totally fine. The most important thing is not justifying your gap in terms of what you did, but why do you want to now do MBA? That reason must be solid. That if you have spent 3 years in UPSC, why did not you try some other government service? Why not some other government job? Why particularly MBA? So for that you need to have a proper justification. So I had mentioned that what are the opportunities in the private sector in terms of creating an impact, the diversity of the job, etc. So have your own answer. why do you want to transition into MBA right now? And in terms of improving your profile, I mean, firstly, try to get a job that would help. But if not, then you can look at certifications that are available online. But I think you should not worry too much about the gap years and focus on the transitioning part at this stage now.
Okay, so the next question is, hi guys, I'm pursuing BCom from a local college where whatever. So from a local college where you don't even have to attend college, I scored 98.2 in 10th, 93 in 12th, and currently in first year of BCom. So can I get into FMS, IIMs, etc.? Would someone like to take that up?
Yeah, so like Sarthak mentioned, you should not really fret about, what has happened before or which college in your currently. It does not really matter a lot if you work hard enough, if you're able to get a certain CAT percentile. Basically, the point being, if you're eligible for an FMS call, you should not really think of yourself as lesser than anyone. If you've made it this far, you've got like I heard this person has got like 90s in their 10th and 12th. So that are great scores, which most people don't have. So at the end of the day, it's all about how much effort you put in first for your CAT exam and then for your interviews. Once you're able to crack them, which hopefully you will, you don't have to worry so much about, oh, I'm not from this college. There's absolutely no need to feel inferior in any way. And also, being in a local college does not in any way mean that it will hamper your chances of getting into an FMS or IIM. You can also think of it in a positive light that if you don't have to attend classes, you can do a lot more extra. You can pursue certifications, you can pursue internships, you can also end up doing like a CFA or something, which because it also goes well with the BCom degree. So it actually gives you space to improve your profile through these 3 years and also work hard for CAT and hopefully make it to a good college.
And if I take the example of our own batch, I mean, there are people right from the IITs to regional colleges as well. So in no way is it a detriment or, does it hamper your chances in any way? It's just about who you are as a person. Your previous pedigree has no, sort of like weightage in terms of your chances of getting selected.
Right. So I think we had a question regarding the composite score calculation for PWD candidates. So just to briefly run you through it, composite score calculation is available on the website. It's public data about how the interview weightages are and what the CAT percentile weightage is. There is no difference for PWD candidates as such. However, as you are aware of the different categories that are present at FMS, so you will be essentially put in that list, and there'll be an open list as well. So if your composite score in that particular list meets the cutoff criteria, then you will get through and get a call and get through the college as well. However, in the score calculation itself, there is no special weight that is given to it. Right. Moving on, we have covered this question. Suggestions about improving the profile. So I would say that profile it's important while you go in for your interview. It's probably more important once you get in. So I would just give you like a few pointers. I personally was aware that the profile would probably come in handy later on in life. So always make sure that you are doing something, as Prakrit mentioned, that you're able to justify what you were doing. Do not at any point feel that you are probably just waiting for something to happen. Always try and do something. So this could be in terms of certifications that someone mentioned, internships that you can do, apprenticeship you can do. Do not worry too much about what or which company it is where you're going. Perhaps it might even be some startup that is in your town, but as long as you're doing something, you're getting some experience out of it, it will help you improve your profile. And I believe that the biggest addition to your profile is how you're able to justify your profile. So as long as you're able to do that, your profile is already valued a lot. So we have a lot of our batchmates who probably felt that the profile was not very great, but come anyone who talks about it, if they're able to justify it, it sounds great. So your profile is only as good as you're able to explain it, and someone who's probably had some great internships as well, if they're not able to communicate it well, probably does not. So I would say that improvements in your profile come mainly from the fact that you're looking to do something at every point of your life and not being unproductive in the breaks between semesters, for example, or the time that you have been preparing for CAT or anything of that matter. Just try and do something, maybe even perhaps some volunteer work helps in this aspect, it stands out. So yeah, that's about it. Anyone else has anything to say? Right. So move ahead. This we have covered. What is the average length of an FMS interview? As mentioned, it can be anywhere ranging from 6 to 7 minutes to about 12 to 13 minutes on the upper end. So yeah. Next, how can I justify my gap year is done? Are interviews grilling in nature? This can be very subjective. For example, mine was quite grilling in nature, but I've had some friends who had a very, very nice and pleasant experience. So I think it really depends on the panelists and also what they want to do with that particular interview. So do not worry too much about this. Try and prepare for either ends of the spectrum. Next, house accommodation and hostels we have covered. Prepare for extemporary also we have covered. Improvements of profile is done. Any last minute tips to stay calm throughout the interview? Would anyone like to take that up? All right, I'll just go ahead. So since my interview was obviously very, very grilling in nature, I personally felt that something that helped me a lot was that it's going to get over in 10 minutes. Like, what's the worst that could happen? That's what I thought, and maybe it might not work for everyone, but it worked for me. I thought that okay, what's the worst that could happen? They probably don't like me. They probably just send me out. But life goes on, and nothing changes other than the fact that these 10 minutes were probably a little rough on me. So I thought that, and I was like, it's gonna get over soon. It's okay. Nothing's gone wrong. And one more thing that I like to believe in is that we worry the most about things that we just don't know the result of. So, I mean, until the result comes, you don't know. You never know. There have been interviews that were really terrible who have also gotten in the first conversion list of FMS. So, your perception of yourself and the interview might not really reflect what the interviewer thinks. So, that is what helped me stay calm. Anyone else?
Okay, go ahead, Raksha.
I largely agree with you, Sarthak, that the perspective of, what's the worst that could go wrong is really works. And that not for my FMS interview, but for some of my other interviews, this happened with me. I went in, I wasn't, in order to stay calm, I didn't read the news of that morning. Terrible decision. And I was just asked of what happened that particular day. Something major had happened. The Silicon Valley Bank had collapsed that day, and I wasn't aware of it, and they were not very happy with that. So things like these happen, but the good side is that I got into FMS. So there will always be a brighter side. You will realize that sooner or later. So more important than answering what to do before, just so you know that if an interview goes bad, you never know what the result is going to be, and if the result is not in your favor, please know there's something brighter and nicer is on your way. And I couldn't be more grateful for being an FMS today.
Same. So actually, even I had a very sorry.
No, go ahead.
So even I had a very similar experience where during one of my interviews, I was a nervous wreck and I actually ended up ruining that interview completely. So my experience was that the more confident I was, the better my interview tended to go, and the more receptive the panelists were to whatever I was saying. So I think having that knowledge and keeping that in mind is actually something that you can work on. And one more advice that I have to stay calm and just do your interview well is to have a good night's sleep before your interview and just sleep a lot. I remember for that interview, the one that I was talking about, I think I slept maybe about 3 or 4 hours because I was so nervous. So my suggestion would be sleep well, and you will find that your interview will actually go much better.
I think the mindset that you should have before going an interview is that if you're good enough to get an interview call, that means that the institution is interested in having you as a student. So go with that mindset that if you're good enough to get an interview call, you are good enough to convert it. So go with that mindset and you'll be calm and confident.
Right. So moving ahead, we have tips for extemporary. I think this was covered. So probably you can go a little back and have a look at it. Next is switching from UPSC to MBA. I think Prakrit had covered this a little earlier as well. However, Prakrit, if you have anything to add to that, you can.
I think talk about your motivation to join UPSC so they'll ask you why did you want to pursue UPSC on the first place. So have a genuine answer for it. So for me, it was that there were two reasons. One, it gives me a very diverse work profile on a day-to-day basis, and two, it gives you a great opportunity to create an impact. And the reason why I wanted to switch to MBA is that in today's times you can do both these things through a job in the private sector. I mean, if you're working for a multinational company, you are going to have a global impact. You have that potential if you reach in the top tier of the company. And again, in terms of the diversity of the job, let's say you're in a consulting role, you are going to work across different industries. So MBA gives you both those options, and that was my justification. But again, it has to be, your own story, your own motivations, and you have to write your answer accordingly.
Right. Thank you, Prakrit. Next, we'll be moving on to, again, similar topic. Okay. Is there an exchange program? So, per se, technically, we don't have an exchange program. However, we are affiliated to a few of the schools in Europe, and you can have a look at it on the website as well. So there is a sort of a program that is available for FMS students, which you can avail. But it's of a different nature, not exactly the same as that you would see in IIMs. So you can have a look at it. The details are available on the website. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I just like to add a few things to that. So it's called a summer school. It's of 2 weeks after your internship, so probably the month of June. And now actually the college is looking into having an exchange program. There nothing has been formalized as yet, so we don't really have a lot of details on it. But perhaps in a year or two we might be looking at something. Nothing definitive yet, but yeah, probably something that could be expected. And that shouldn't be a differentiating factor for joining FMS, but yeah, just
Yeah, another thing is that FMS follows a semester system. Most of the IIMs have a trimester system, so that is a little different from other colleges. So yeah, there are a few technicalities. So hopefully you convert FMS and we can have a chat about this on campus. So next, moving on, we have a question about the scores needed in PI to convert FMS. Again, the composite score calculation is available. Again, do not worry to probably so it's probably the best to not worry about it and fret about it too much. Try to give your best in the interview and see what happens. If you are interested in the composite score calculation, it's available on the internet and you can have a look at it. Right. So someone has asked, what would you choose? Why would you choose FMS over the other top IIMs other than ROI? So it's a very personal question. So everyone will probably have an answer to this. So anyone would like to go first?
I mean, the question is why not? I mean, FMS started 1954, way before IIM. So, it's one of the most reputed and oldest B schools in the country. Apart from that, the alum network that we have. So, because we used to have a very small batch size, the alum network is very closely connected. So, there is this camaraderie, which I don't think, I mean, it's much more stronger at FMS. Um, the other reason would be the flexibility in terms of the academics. Like Raksha mentioned that MBA can be hectic. It is hectic, but at FMS you have this room to pursue your own interests. So if you want to really focus on case competitions, you want to do some research, all of those opportunities you can pursue here. Also in terms of faculty, we have some really experienced professors who have been with this institution for a very long time, so that you get the classroom experience in itself is quite rewarding. So these are some of the reasons. There is another aspect of it being a completely student run campus, and every single activity there is the role of the student body, so that makes it an exciting college life in general.
And another thing that I'd like to add to this is that, as I've already been talking about this, being in Delhi has its own advantages. So you'll find that once you join, you'll have a lot of corporates actually coming down from Gurgaon and having talks with the entire batch about their corporate experiences, what the new trends are like in the corporate world, what are the new things that are happening. And I believe that that practical experience that you will get with, and of course, being in Delhi, the amount of times you will be able to have that experience is unparalleled. And those insights are, I think, another supplement to the already, of course, classroom experience that we have. And I believe that the things that we get to learn from those people when they come down and spend about 2 hours talking to us, I think that is something which is really something to look forward to, and it's a great thing about FMS.
Right. So for me personally, I would say that the batch size is something that I really prefer. In my UG, there was a huge batch size, about 1,000 students, and even to this date, I don't know some of the names of my batchmates, and that kind of it's not a great feeling. If I see someone's name on my LinkedIn and I'm like, who's that person? Then I go and check their profile and I realize they're my batchmate. That doesn't happen at FMS. You will know almost everyone in every section and you have a good association. And when we talk about networking and the importance of networking at MBA, I think this really helps. You are more closely connected with a lot of your batchmates and friends as well. So yeah, I think that sets it apart from other IIMs, other than the factors that Prakrit and Aariman have mentioned. Right. Okay. So anyone else would like to say something, or shall we move ahead?
You get a lot of live projects also just by being in Delhi, so that is another added advantage.
Right. So I think uh, that is about it in the questions section as of now. Okay, just as I said that there's a question about placement. So I think that's not relevant to the conversation that we have on hand here, which is about the interview experiences. Perhaps we can organize another one later on once we have the time. So let's not discuss this here. Having said that, I think it will be a good time to maybe summarize for those who have missed out what we have discussed today. So Prakrit, Raksha, or Garima, anyone would like to go ahead and summarize the discussions?
Sure, I can go ahead. So I'll just sort of give a chronological overview of what we spoke about. We started with our introductions. You can find that in the initial minutes. Then we started answering the questions revolving around the extemporary, the living situation that we have here, our life at FMS, why FMS, how would you justify your gap years, how would you what can you do to build your profile, how is FMS different from the other institutes. So these are some of the things that we've covered here. Obviously you can find all of us on LinkedIn. You can reach out to us if there is anything else that you want to talk about. Rest be assured that FMS is one of the best institutes. We as the batch are trying our best to sort of uphold that, and our seniors have done a great job in doing that. There is a lot to learn if you want to learn. There is a lot to do if you want to do. And FMS is the place to be if you are a self-motivated person. So yeah, all the best for your interview experience, for your interview. I hope all of you have a good experience. And there are some of the best days of your life ahead of you if you join this institute.
I think three
I think
things
we
to
have,
keep, yeah,
sorry,
yeah, three
sorry,
things
go
to
ahead.
keep in mind. One, prepare for extemporary with your friends. Just practice random topics and do it in a timed manner so that you know what a 1 minute duration feels like while talking. Two, you should be very thorough with your SOP. That's very important. And another point would be that no matter how, if you're not able to answer one or two questions, if your extemporary does not go well, don't let it affect the rest of your interview, and just be confident and calm throughout the interview. And most importantly, you'll have to show that you are genuinely interested in joining FMS. If you tick these basic boxes, you should be able to sail through.
I think we have a couple more minutes left, so in case anyone has some closing questions that they'd like to ask, we'd be happy to take them. Okay, so I think there are no more questions that anybody has. I think we can conclude the session here.
Wish everyone all the best for the interviews, and please feel free to connect with any of us on LinkedIn and have your questions there if you wish. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Best of luck.